Hi everyone, it's Paul Curtin, and this is part 2 of your Ironman Louisville 2019 course overview. This one covers the bike. Let's start off by looking at the elevation. Ironman Louisville has a gain of 5,500 or so feet. I know last year I think my Garmin had about 4,600 feet, so your mileage may vary. But the key point is it's not much different than the terrain that we ride around Caesar Creek. So it's the same kind of hills that you're used to. Nothing super steep, nothing super long. You're going to hit your first hill right about here, just before or right at about mile 10. And that's going to be once you make that left turn from River Road onto 42, you'll climb up this little segment to get to the, you'll go past the church, and then you get to the first loop, which is basically about mile 21 or so. That takes you through about here on the map. You make the left turn back on the Kentucky 393. Here's your second loop. And then about mile 80 or so, you start that nice long descent back into town where it flattens out and you take River Road back to the finish. So nothing too intimidating, probably nothing different than you're used to riding. And on to the course. So here's an aerial picture of transition area. This is the spot where the bike racks are. You'll come out of transition. You'll actually run under the interstate bridge. This is going uphill, so be mindful of that. Know if you're going to walk in your socks or barefoot or in your biking shoes. And then you get to this point, and somewhere in here is the bike mount line. So find a section on the left or on the right to know where you're going to mount your bike. Run a little bit past the line just to avoid the crowds. I know I like to go to the left side because I mount my bike with my right leg going over, and I want to see if anybody's coming at me. So that's my strategy to get out onto the bike course. And then the crowds in here are huge and awesome, and I'll be in there screaming at you people as well. So you come out and you make this first left onto River Road and out, and you're on your way. Here's a picture of the from the Athlete Guide of that same bike course. And a couple things I want to point out here. One is that somewhere in here, if you look at the map, there is a set of railroad tracks, and they're kind of at an angle. So be careful how you take those. And then the second thing is when you're on River Road, it's crowded, it's tight, it can be a little bit dark. The other thing is you're going to have the wind at your back. The winds are going to be about 8 miles an hour from the southwest, and you want to be careful. It's going to be easy to go fast, so be mindful of that. Don't overdo it. Watch your perceived exertion rate, watch your heart rate, make sure things are in check until you get to the real climbs. And here is where we would, let's see, it's right about here. We would make that left turn onto 42. You're still going to have the wind at your back through there, so be careful in that first section of the course. So let's zoom out to the course in its entirety. This is all 112 miles. River Road out to 42, to right on 393, 2 loops, and back into town. I think the biggest thing to consider, especially as you go early in the race, as you make this left, or the left on the Kentucky 146, you get to mile 36. Remember that you got there because you had a tailwind, so be very careful. Like, you could feel great at 38, but that's because you had the wind at your back. So be very mindful of that. Don't overcook it. Don't overdo it. A couple things I want to point out. Here's Spike Special Needs. It's coming up the top of a hill, so it's really easy to hit. They'll call out your number. Here's LaGrange. Be careful in there because with the tailwind and with the crowds cheering you on, it's easy to look down and see that you're doing 35 miles an hour when you probably shouldn't be going that fast. A couple other things to point out. This little left turn here onto Ballard School Road is a little bit tricky because you're coming off a downhill. Be mindful. Ballard School Road is a narrow road, so a little bit less room to maneuver. There's one section where you do this little zigzaggy thing and you come across a bridge, which is notorious for riders losing their bike bottles. So be careful of that. Take it at the right angle. Hop your bike if you know how to do that. And get over that successfully both times. I think the most important part of this course for Sunday is when you hit mile 80, because you make that left turn to come back on 42 all the way back into town, and you've got a little bit of a headwind that you're going to be facing. And when I say a little bit, it's going to feel like this. It's going to be massive. So you really have to conserve your energy and conserve your ride so that when you get to 80, you're still strong. Your back isn't tight. You can stay in the aero position. You can pass an enormous number of people and gain, a huge amount of time. I remember 2 years ago in 2017 at Louisville, I had that same situation. We had a wind from the southwest, and it was very advantageous because I was ready for it. So please be ready for it. Don't overcook early. Don't overdo it on the bike. And finally, just a couple tips on your bike strategy. In general, that first hour is critical. Don't go fast. There's a notion of just riding along. Make it easy. If it feels like you're going too fast, you probably are. If it feels like you're going too slow, you might be riding the right pace. So the most important thing is to get started on hydration and nutrition. It's been 2 hours since you've had anything, so get the fluids going. Start to take in solids as soon as you can. For me, I can't absorb solids until about 40 minutes or so into the bike ride, but whatever works for you, don't forget about that, especially since you'll be going fast with a tailwind. Riding the hills, it's no different from the hills here, and most importantly, mile 80. So I'll end with this little saying at the bottom here. There's no such thing as a good bike followed by a poor run. If you didn't run well, if you blew up in the run, it's because you didn't bike right. So make sure you bike smart on Sunday and get to where you can execute on the run. Okay? We'll follow up with the run segment tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.